G'day. In this video, I want to run through some of the settings that you have in the user menu available to you if you have a BMW S1000RR. This particular bike is a 2016 model, and I believe this is relevant for the 2015 through to the 2019 models. So the 2020 model is a different electronics, and the earlier models may not have all of the functionality that we're going to show you here. So primarily, I'm going to cover 7 different settings that, like I said, you might find them pretty useful. You may or may not be aware of them. First of all, in order to utilize the setup menu on the BMW S1000RR, you just got to be familiar with the switch itself that you use, which is the bottom left-hand side of the left-hand grip. It's the trip lap set button, and basically I focus on the set end of the button itself. For a short press, it's going to scroll. For a long press where you hold it, it's going to select, which is either going to start something or end something. So with that in mind, basically what I'm going to do is I'm first of all going to take you to the setup menu. So I press the set button and I scroll down till I see setup menu. Then I do a long press on the set part of the button and it takes me into the setup menu. And you'll notice in the setup menu there we get a couple of options. We can set up the dynamic damping control system. We can set up the equipment. We can set up for a racetrack. And we can set up user mode, which we've covered in a separate video. Now, what I'm going to do is jump through the exit side of it and go back to the dynamic damping control system. So in here, to select that, I simply hold the set button for a long press and it opens it up. And what you'll see in here is you can actually change the rebound and compression for the rear suspension. So you'll see rebound 0, rebound compression, rear compression 0. That would be in the middle point, which is the factory setting. And you've got options of going to -7 to +7. So you've got a whole range, like 15 different stop points that you can run through. You've also got the option to change the damping on the front. Now, unless you've got an accessory fitted to the front fork, which is, I believe, a travel sensor, then you can only adjust the damping as a single thing, as opposed to setting rebound and compression separately. So if you have the accessory fitted to the fork, you can actually separate the two and adjust them separately. So they can be adjusted by simply, let's just say, if I want to, I'll go back to that. Whoop, wrong button. Okay, I'll go back to the rear rebound. If I want the rebound to be a little bit slower, I'd simply hold the enter button, right, until it flashes. It's a long press, and then I would scroll whichever direction I want. So if I want it stiffer, so it's slower rebound, then I'm going to make it an additional 2. So that's going to be a stronger rebound. I hold down the set button and hold that. Right, then I scroll through to the compression for the damping for the rear. Let's just say I want to soften that so it compresses a little quicker and rebounds slower. I would hold the set button until it flashes, and then in this case I'm going to go to -2 and then select that. Right, and now I've got, you'll notice here, rear rebound, set it a little bit harder, and rear compression set a little softer or slower. The front damping, if I leave that at 0, I can, or I can do the same thing. I can select and I can adjust that on a range of -7 to +7. So that would be number 1. You can adjust the damping, dynamic damping control, the way the rebound and compression works in the rear, and the overall damping at the front. You can soften or stiffen it depending on what you want. But there's another thing you've got in here as well. So see the DDC system where it says calibrate. This is an important thing. If you adjust the preload, which you should at some point in time, you should check the sag of your motorcycle. And if you make changes to the ride height of the bike, which is what happens when you change the preload, particularly in the rear, then you need to select calibrate, because what the calibration does is it adjusts to a ride height of 0. So it zeroes itself according to whatever ride height you've got, and that's important in terms of rear wheel lift detection and that type of thing. So as I said, if you adjust preload or sag on the S1000RR, you should calibrate the DDC system. Okay, the last thing I'm going to cover on this DDC system is this. See where it says set DR, basically it's asking, do you want to set damping? And it's turned off. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter this and I'm going to turn it to on. What that's going to allow me to do, once it's selected, is I can actually go into the setup menu and it will include dynamic damping control, rebound and compression for the rear, and damping for the front, and I can set it up on the run. If I want to soften things or stiffen up things, I can actually do it manually while I'm riding. So in order to see that, you just need to turn that on. I'll show you what that does on the setup menu. Now, because we turned on Adjust DDC on the fly while we're riding, basically what's going to happen is you're going to see something slightly different on your screen now when you go back to the original dashboard. So now, previously when we pressed the set button and scroll through, it just took us through a few basic options from the lap timer through to the setup menu entry. But when I press it this time, you'll see a little bit of a difference. It goes to the lap timer, but then the next thing it does is it opens up the ability to adjust the dynamic damping control system, in this particular case, the rear rebound, the rear compression, and the damping for the front. So I can scroll up and go back. I can only scroll down to get to it, obviously. So if I want to change that, and I can do this on the fly, I just simply hold in the set button, okay, and I can then go, okay, the rebound's not stiff enough. What I'll do is I'll reduce that to a rebound setting of 1. It's too stiff. I want it to rebound a bit quicker. Then I would go to 1, closer to 0. So I can go any particular way I want. So that's it. Then I hold the set button for a long press, and then it sets it. I keep scrolling and set the compression for the rear, or I can set the damping for the front. Again, hold the set button, long press, and I can scroll through. I can make it stiffer, or I can make it softer, depending on what I want to do. So that there is the additional part that you see on your setting menu, okay, in addition to all of the traditional stuff. That's it. So I'm going to simply, I've got that on, I'm going to get to the exit side of it, and I'm going to exit the DDC system setup. I'm going to select this time the equipment, because there's a couple of things in here that I can show you. So long press, hold down the setup, the set button, and I scroll through until I find, right, not warning speed, but the lamp. You see where it says equipment warning lamp on. Now, basically what that is it's a warning lamp that tells you if you've got a broken bulb or a disconnection in the wiring for the lighting system. If you're going to disconnect the front headlights and the rear tail light for track work, what's going to happen is as you disconnect them, this warning lamp is going to come on your dash. Well, what you can do is you can turn this off. So I just do a long press on the set button, right, scroll through till I get off, and then I select that. Because now what that means is the warning lamp won't come on the dash when I disconnect the headlights and the tail light. So pretty useful for the track setup. Now, the other thing I just want to take you through to is this. Series Equipment Bank display. So basically what that is it's going to display the lean angle of your bike on the dashboard. So you get a live lean angle, which will set up or adjust according to the speed you set, and it will also record your maximum lean angle for left and right. So it just appears on your dash. Now, in order for you to turn that on, you just simply scroll through, select it and scroll through until you get your choice, and then what you'll find is you get the display. There's a mid, fast, off or slow option here, so I just put it on mid, and basically it's going to adjust kind of at a mid speed, not fast, not slow. What that means in terms of how long, you need to look that up on some sort of technical book. But now with that on, what it's going to do is display the lean angle sensor on the screen of the dashboard of the bike. Okay, equipment display. Okay, we've got that on. Scroll through. Brake display on, I've got that on. Okay, and I'm just going to exit this. Now, set up the racetrack. There's a couple of things in here that you might be interested in. So first of all, I've got to select it. So long press to get the enter. And in here, what this is, where it says race GSL, so it's basically the gear change indicator. So there's a light on the dash, and it will come on according to the RPM that you set. So I've put my RPM at 13,000 RPM. And then if you press the scroll button, right, the off RPM. So it's going to display a bright light on the dash. It's that little gear change light that's above the readout here. for a period of 500 revs, between 13,000 and 13,500. So you can change that, you can adjust that up and down, and it also gets you to adjust the different brightness and frequencies that you might want to employ. Okay, the pit limiter. The pit limiter is off. So basically, if you're going to ride through a pit, you'll see this on MotoGP bikes and World Superbikes, where what they do is they hold in the start button on the handlebar in first gear, and then they open the throttle, and what will happen is the pit limiter limits the speed of the bike according to an RPM setting. So in this particular case, it's turned off. Well, we can turn that on, and the way we do that is long press of the set button. It flashes, and now it gets me into some different RPM choices. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce it, keep scrolling until I get it down to 4,000 RPM. And what that's going to do is when you activate the start button when you're riding in first gear, so you actually hold in the start button with your thumb and then roll open the throttle, it will limit the speed of the bike, right, when the engine gets to 4,000 RPM. And that's called a pit limiter. You might like the sound of that. It's a bit of a buzz, just using it. So like I said, do not try to activate that pit or operate the pit limiter as you're driving through the pit unless that is turned on, because it will have no effect whatsoever. It'll just go full throttle. Okay, there you have it. Exit racetrack. And we exit the setup menu. So I hope you enjoyed that. There's, a whole bunch of different functionality that's within the BMW S1000RR settings, but have explored those. Pretty easy. They might be the most useful ones that you're going to find. So I'll see you in the next video.